my son declared. You mean nothing to this family. And I found the strength to change everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with tension, palpable as I stood in the living room, my heart racing, breath shallow. At that moment, in his darkened eyes, I saw the sharp edge of betrayal. It cut deep. I could feel the walls around me creeping in, suffocating. The silence in our home was deafening, a haunting echo of shattered dreams. Jax, my youngest, was the light of my life. But that day he was a storm. We had been drifting for weeks, months even, like two ships lost in a fog. I could see the pain hidden beneath his bravado and teenage angst, but I didn't know how to bridge the gulf that had formed between us. The truth was, I was drowning too, trapped in a marriage that had turned stale, friendships that felt like obligations, and a job that suffocated my spirit. I craved connection, yet the very people who mattered seemed like strangers. That I remember the coldness in his voice, the way his words wrapped around my heart, squeezing tight. You think you know me, but you don't. The accusation stung like icy water, shocking me into silence. Why couldn't he see? All I wanted was to understand. I wasn't just his mother. I was a woman searching for meaning, trying to find her way back to herself amidst the chaos. My gaze drifted to the family pictures on the wall. Smiles frozen in time, memories tainted by the weight of disappointment. What had gone wrong? Couldn't he see I was trying? I spent sleepless nights wondering where Jax's laughter had gone, replaced by sullen looks and slamming doors. And then there was Emma, my eldest, sitting quietly in the corner. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, calculating the fallout. Between the two of them, I felt like a pendulum, swinging between caring for Jax and comforting Emma. Each relationship had its wounds. Each silence was a crack in our family. Mom, she whispered, her voice trembling, what will we do now? The question hung heavy, ripe with uncertainty. Was this the end? I felt a spark flicker within, a blend of fear and the unexpected stirrings of defiance. What if I didn't just stand there? What if I fought to change everything? But with every plan I drafted, the unknown loomed larger than my thoughts, sculpting the shadows of doubt around me. That same night, I found myself wandering the house, my fingers trailing along the walls, grounding me. Each room whispered secrets of our past. Memories danced around every corner. Could I summon the strength to begin anew? Could I break the cycles that held us captive? I had no way of knowing what awaited me or how deep the rabbit hole went. The spark was there, but it felt fragile. It flickered like a candle in a storm. Could I reignite the flame, or would it extinguish before I even tried? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The dawn arrived hesitantly, filtering through the curtains like an uninvited guest. I woke with a weight on my chest, as if the gravity of yesterday's words hadn't allowed me to escape into sleep. I rose with tentative resolve, feeling a growing warmth inside me, a flicker of determination that pushed against the coldness lingering from Jax's accusations. As I moved through the kitchen, the aroma of coffee wrapped around me like a comforting embrace. I instinctively reached for the mug, fingers grazing the cracked surface, a testament to the years of use. I paused, gazing out the window toward the garden once vibrant, now battered by winter's grasp. It reflected our family, wilted but still alive. Emma slipped into the room, her hair tousled from sleep, and for a moment, we stood together in shared silence. I wanted to reach out, to tell her that everything would be okay, but my own uncertainty held my tongue captive. She poured herself a cup of coffee, her gaze on the patio where Jax had spent countless hours playing. Do you think he'll ever forgive us? She whispered, breaking the quiet, the weight of her question wrapping tightly around my heart. That I hope so. I replied gently, not entirely certain where that hope came from. It felt delicate. We need to show him that we're here for him, that I'm here for him. Moments passed, and we clinked our mugs together, a small gesture of solidarity against the storm. That afternoon, I decided to venture into the attic. It had become a sanctuary of sorts, a place where remnants of our past told stories I had nearly forgotten. I climbed the creaky stairs, each step echoing with memories. The attic was a labyrinth of boxes, some labeled with familiar names and dates, others gathering dust in anonymity. I started sifting through the past old photo albums, toys they once cherished, and school reports showcasing their triumphs and failures. Nestled at the bottom of a lengthy box, I found a dusty journal Jax's. My throat tightened at the thought of peeking into the labyrinth of his mind, but I resolved to read it with care. Flipped pages illuminated moments of joy, heartache, and dreams once vibrant, but faded now. His ink told me more than his spoken words, a struggle with identity, a longing for acceptance, the weight of expectations pressing down on his young shoulders. I felt tears stinging my eyes as I read his thoughts, raw and unfiltered. This was the son I recognized, the boy who would draw whimsical creatures while sitting quietly, the one who laughed until his belly ached. But beneath it all lay an intricate tapestry woven with self-doubt and confusion. How had I let it slip away? How had I not seen? As I set the journal down, my phone buzzed. Jax was texting. My heart raced, and I hesitated. Could this be our moment? Can we talk? It read, a breath of fresh air within the suffocating confines of yesterday's anger. I climbed down quickly, half praying that he hadn't changed his mind. Through the art of fate, or perhaps the universe handing me a flicker of hope, I found Jax in his room, a fortress built from unspoken words and heavy silence. What's up? I asked, trying to sound casual as I leaned against the doorframe, the familiar ache of worry stirring within me. Nothing, he muttered, head down, fingers running through his tousled hair. But I could see the storm brewing behind his dark eyes, like a tempest waiting to break. That I found your journal, I said softly, hoping my vulnerability would bridge the gap. For a moment, he looked stunned, shock replaced with anger, and I braced myself for his response. You went through my stuff? A wave of guilt rolled over me. It wasn't my intention to invade his privacy. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, but I wanted to understand. His defenses faltered as he searched my face, hunger for connection battling his instinct to retreat. Why didn't you just ask me? He asked quietly, almost pleading. The tension slackened, but it didn't dissolve. My heart surged with the flickering sparks of hope, but was ignited with dread. In that moment, I felt the vastness of the gulf between us. I don't know, I admitted. I guess I was scared. His silence struck me like a gust of wind, leaving me feeling exposed. The air danced thickly between us, each breath punctuated by the weight of unspoken truths. Maybe I'm scared too, he finally whispered. The vulnerability cracking the hard outer shell had constructed. It wasn't the resolution I had been hoping for, but it was a step, however small. I took a deep breath, drawing strength from the fragile thread binding us. Can we start again? I asked, the words tumbling out. As our eyes locked, a dreadful suddenness struck him as voice echoed down the hallway, calling my name with urgency. My heart sank, and just as I turned to walk towards her, the unmistakable sound of shattered glass cut through the air. Jax's eyes widened in fear as we both rushed out of the room. What awaited us in the living room would change everything yet again. Our fragile moment of connection dangling precariously on the edge of chaos. The sound of shattering glass reverberated in my ears, slicing through the fragile atmosphere that had just begun to mend. I exchanged a wary glance with Jax, who was still trying to process the remnants of our conversation, the vulnerability lingering between us like a thin thread. We both hurried down the hallway, apprehension twisting in my stomach. Emma was standing in the living room, stricken, eyes wide and unblinking. Her hands trembled, and it took me a moment to register what had happened. A picture frame lay on the floor, glass scattered like tiny shards of our past. The photo, once capturing a moment of laughter on a summer dune, was now a wreck. Mom, she began, but her voice faltered under the weight of the tension thickening the air. It's okay, sweetheart, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I moved towards the mess, kneeling down to collect the pieces, but the action felt futile against the landscape of our lives crumbling around us. Jax stepped closer, his expression a mix of concern and an urgency that reflected my own. Emma, it's fine. Just breathe. It was an accident. His tone had softened, and the tenderness caught me off guard. This was the boy I knew trying to comfort his sister in the face of chaos. But Emma wasn't having it. "It's not just an accident," she burst out, her voice trembling. "Everything is falling apart. I didn't mean to, but it feels like we're all just breaking." The frustration in her words pierced through me like a dagger, and for a fleeting moment, I felt the heaviness she carried. I stopped picking up the glass, allowing the tears to swell in my eyes momentarily before blinking them back. Being a mother meant holding them, all their emotions sometimes at the cost of your own. "Emma, I know it feels overwhelming," I said gently, rising to face her. "But we're still here. We can fix this together, just like we can fix the picture." She sniffed, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. It dawned on me that the photo wasn't just a decoration. It was a symbol of a moment we all cherished. I could see her searching for the remnants of that joy, the essence of family imprinted in that snapshot. "Maybe we need to create new memories instead," Jack suggested awkwardly, attempting to bridge the emotional chasm that hung like a dark cloud. "We could go somewhere this weekend. Something fun, just us." It was heartfelt, and I marveled at the willingness of my children to dream about togetherness amidst the wreckage of our home. They were both desperate for healing, and I too craved it like the air we breathed. "Like a family day?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper as hope flickered in her eyes. "Exactly," Jax affirmed, a determined nod punctuating his words. "We can pick something. A hike, or even the amusement park. Just no distractions." Their excitement started to build softly, painting over the jagged edges of our earlier troubles. I could see a kinship they began to cultivate. "Okay, let's do it," I said, allowing a smile to break through the worry. "But you both have to help me clean this up first." The laughter that followed felt like a balm, stitching together the wounds that had festered for so long. Together, we gathered the broken pieces, Emma sweeping shards into a dustpan while Jax took charge of the larger fragments, and each small moment of cooperation wove our connection tighter. But as we cleaned, the heaviness still lingered, a consistent presence like a shadow. The sound of footsteps from the front door caught my attention. I straightened up, glancing over at Jax, who mirrored my concern. Who could that be? He wondered aloud, a hint of dread creeping into his voice. Before I could answer, the door swung open, revealing a figure I hadn't seen in years, me sister, Lila, standing there, hesitating as if she were traversing a battlefield. An eager glimmer in her eyes dimmed the moment she caught sight of our somber assembly. "Hey," she said softly, her voice trembling uncertainly as she stepped inside. "Lila?" I breathed, heart racing. What had compelled her to show up now, amidst the chaos? She glanced around the room, uncharacteristically small in the doorway as her memory wove between what was and what could have been. "I know things have been strained," she paused, swallowing hard. "But I think I have something important to tell you about, Dad." My breath hitched. The past I thought we had left behind clawed its way back into our reality, and I locked eyes with Jax, fear flickering anew. This was the uncharted territory I had dreaded, the truth resurfacing when I had fought so hard to create a new start. "Mom," Jax whispered, and I could hear the worry in his voice. Lila stepped forward, and I felt the world shift beneath my feet as if we were standing on the edge of a cliff, the rest of our family descending into a darkness I wasn't ready to face. My heart thudded loudly. Could this be the revelation that changed everything? The one that could tear us apart all over again? "Is Dad?" I hesitated to ask, but her eyes held a truth that would rewrite our history, and although I wanted to retreat, I knew I had to stand strong. Should we be prepared for another round of broken glass? Would this family hour turn into a bittersweet revelation like the day everything shattered? I took a step into the storm brewing before us, knowing that this was only the beginning of a new emotional journey through a past I thought I had escaped. The tension hung thick in the air, clinging to us like a second skin. Lila stood there, a specter from the past, her frame trembling as if she carried the weight of secrets untold. My heart raced, caught in a tango between dread and the unmistakable pull of familial duty. We needed to understand what she had come to say, but a part of me wanted to run far from this confrontation. "Is Dad what?" I finally pressed, steeling myself against the tide of emotions threatening to engulf me. Emma's wide eyes and Jax's tight-lipped silence deepened the ache in my chest. I think he's in trouble," Lila stammered, her voice faltering yet resolute. I found something that connects him to a group I never thought I'd be involved with. A shiver slithered down my spine. The elegant father I had admired from a distance was no longer just a name from childhood. He was a truth wrapped in layers of complexity I hadn't wanted to unravel. Why now? I snapped, taking an involuntary step back. After years of silence, you show up to tell us this? A flicker of hurt crossed Lila's face, and guilt gnawed at me. This wasn't just about me. I didn't know, okay? I thought he was just gone. But I got a call from someone last week. They said they had information on his whereabouts. Her desperation tugged at my heartstrings, the familiar rhythm of sisterhood pulling me close even when I felt the urge to distance myself. It could be important, I whispered, mostly to myself. But what does it mean? Jax interjected, his voice laced with confusion and anger. What trouble? What's he done? Lila closed her eyes, as if bracing herself for the truth she was about to unfold. I think he's been involved with money laundering, possibly even something worse. I can't rest knowing he might be in danger or responsible for something that could hurt others. The room spun, and I felt as if the ground had fractured beneath me. What I had thought was simple abandonment now threatened to become a monumental betrayal. The anger inside began swirling, a storm I couldn't contain. What do you want from us, Lila? I asked, my voice rising before I could check it. To jump back into a life where he shattered our hearts? After everything he put us through? A silence fell, thick and suffocating, interrupted only by the distant ticking of the clock on the wall, a reminder of time lost. Please, Lila pressed, crossing the threshold into our emotionally charged space. I'm asking you to help me figure this out. We can't ignore him. This isn't just about our past, it's about the present. He might need us. There was a revolt in my chest, the bitter truth that I've spent so many years trying to bury clawing its way back to the surface. Help him? After he left us? Mom, this is Dad. Emma's voice broke just above a whisper, revealing the conflict raging inside her. What if he's changed? What if he's not the man we thought he was? Her innocence gripped my heart, reminding me that in the pursuit of moving forward, I hadn't allowed space for her to process the man they had lost. He's not the man we remember, Emma, I said softly, my resolve beginning to crack, revealing the uncertainty layered underneath. He is a stranger now, and suddenly, the levity from before the laughter, the anticipation of creating new memories felt impossibly distant. I swallowed hard, scanning the faces of my children, both pleading for answers and grappling with the weight of our family's history. I think we should at least listen, Jack spoke up, surprising us all. If something is happening, we have a right to know. We all deserve our peace, even if it means confronting our past. My heart imploded with disbelief and respect all at once. Jax, who had carried his own resentments, now stood in defense of our father, entangled in the mysterious thread of family loyalty versus the trauma we endured. Emma nodded, tears pooling in her big blue eyes. Maybe we can finally figure it out. Maybe we can forgive. The thought was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. Forgiveness was a fragile concept, not easily attained, especially when it felt like digging a grave for my own pain, uprooting everything I had spent years processing. Fine, I muttered, my throat tight with trepidation. If you both want to confront this, I will too. But we do this together. We're in this climate of emotional chaos as a family, and we won't shatter again. Just as I finished, the doorbell rang again, an abrupt interruption to the haunting conversation. Confused, I shared a glance with Lila, and the dread returned, thickening the air between us. Who could that be? I wondered aloud, the knot in my stomach tightening. He'll get it, Emma offered, but in her voice, I sensed an undercurrent that made me uneasy. She opened the door, and I was instantly thrust into a vortex of disbelief. There stood a man I hadn't seen in years, his presence a ghostly reminder of everything I loathed, yet simultaneously longed to understand. The same smile I loved so much flicked across his face, though it didn't reach his worried eyes. Hey, it's me, he said, voice steady yet laced with an urgency I couldn't ignore. I'm back. I need to talk to all of you. A million emotions collided: relief, anger, fear, all wrapped in a primal instinct to protect my children from the storm that was about to descend. As I looked at their faces, my heart started to pound, anticipating the fallout that would follow this unexpected reunion. In that moment, I realized the glass windows of our lives weren't just broken by chaos. They had shattered into so many pieces capable of reflecting the lighter, cutting deep if stepped on carelessly. How many more revelations lay hidden beneath the surface, waiting for us to confront them? How would this encounter redefine our already fragile continuity? Mom, Jax urged, his voice a blend of caution and concern. And just like that, we stood at the precipice again, entering a new chapter fraught with danger and possibility, straddling the line between forgiveness and heartache. The door had swung open to something unforeseen, someone unforeseen, and I knew we had to brace ourselves for whatever truth lay beyond. The air felt electric, thick with the churning emotions that hung over us like a dark cloud ready to burst. The man who had washed his hands of us years ago now stood on our doorstep with the same hopeful smile that had once signaled comfort, but now spoke of betrayal. My heart raced as I took a hesitant step forward, feeling as though I were walking through quicksand every inch of the way. "Dad," I managed, though the word tasted foreign on my tongue. I searched his face, the beloved features now sharpened around the edges by time and neglect. "What do you want?" "I know this isn't easy," he began, glancing at Lila, who stood rooted beside me, her expression a mixture of surprise and a glimmer of something like hope. "I just got out of a really rough situation. I need your help. I didn't want to come without a plan, but I'm here now. I promise to explain everything. Everything." That word hung in the air, a heavy promise that hinted at truths I had never wanted to hear. "You're here after all this time?" The bitterness slipped out before I could wrestle it down. The memories of late-night loneliness and whispered promises that never came to be flooded through me, overwhelming in their intensity. "Please," he said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to listen. I'm not the same person I was," yet those words somehow felt insubstantial, fragile as the glass he had shattered in our lives. "You're right, you're not the same," I shot back. "You don't get to show up now and act as if you can just pick up where you left off, Dad. We've spent years rebuilding from the mess you left behind." "Mom, don't," Emma interjected, stepping toward my father. Her innocence felt like a poignant dagger, sharp and devastating. What if he really has changed? The weight of my daughter's plea pressed onto my chest, and I momentarily faltered. Did I really want to close the door on the possibility of understanding? I could see her searching his face, grappling with the knots in her heart. She yearned for connection, a bond that had been severed, and I felt my own beliefs teetering at the edge. Jax, who had remained silent, now stepped forward. "Can you explain exactly what's going on?" His voice bore a blend of skepticism and the hint of familial loyalty that had always dwelled within him. "I can," my father responded, running a hand through his thinning hair. "But let's sit down. I need all of you to understand what I've gotten into, why I left, and why now I'm in danger." Danger. The word echoed like a drum, and each beat sent tremors through me, laced with the fear of what lay ahead. My heart fought to resist the sudden clamor for understanding, even as a part of me longed for clarity. I could see fear and uncertainty reflected in Jack's and Emma's eyes, an unspoken agreement forming amongst us that perhaps, just maybe, this was an opportunity to confront the unthinkable. "All right," I nodded, a reluctant wave of resignation washing over me. "Let's talk. But it won't be easy." We stepped back inside, the threshold between past pain and potential reconciliation looming just as heavy as before. My father's presence felt intrusive, yet hauntingly familiar. Every fiber of my being screamed to expel him, yet the raw need for answers anchored me as we settled in the living room. Each silence lasted longer than the last. The weight of years, secrets, and regrets hung like a specter, waiting for its moment to reveal itself. The only sound was the clock ticking away, counting down toward whatever revelation was about to be unveiled. Finally, my father cleared his throat, tension laced through his frame. "The people I got mixed up with, they're not just criminals, they're dangerous. When I realized I was in too deep, I tried to get out. That's when things escalated." The words felt absurd, each one bouncing off the walls until they squared back at me. How could a father so accomplished become entangled with the underbelly of society, leading him to abandon us, no, betray us to the chaos of our lives? "Why should we trust you?" I demanded, the bitterness now infused with scorn. "What makes us believe you're not here for your own benefit? Because I came back for you," he yelled, the passion rising in his voice. "I thought about you every single day. I had to keep my distance not that far. I snapped back. You vanished when we needed you most. I did it to protect you. His voice broke, moments of vulnerability spilling unbidden. Jax chimed in again, a voice of reason amongst our chaos. Protecting us? Or protecting yourself? The question hovered ominously, signaling that the cracks in our fragile family bond had begun to widen. You never once reached out, I countered, each word heavy with grief. Even when we were falling apart. What exactly do you think we can do? My father leaned forward, agony etched across his face. I don't want you to be caught in the mess I've made. If they find me, I'm terrified of what they'll do to you. And then, the truth lay bare before us, a knife to our hearts. He had always loved us but failed to show it when it mattered most. Our eyes flickered over to Emma, who looked smaller than she had only moments before. We can work through this, she murmured, her faith in familial ties radiating like a beacon in our stormy sea. Maybe we can protect each other, my heart twisted. Protecting each other. Was that truly what we were willing to do? Or were we unwittingly sealing our own fates in confronting this darkness? But before we could further dissect the tangled emotions that now filled our space, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house, a thunderous interruption that sent my heart racing. My blood turned to ice, and I turned to the sound, dread settling in my veins. Mom, what was that? Emma panicked, her voice quaking as her wide eyes darted toward me. "Two don't know," was all I could utter, the weight of uncertainty thickening around me like fog. My father stood abruptly, his expression shifting from concern to readiness, a protective instinct flickering to life. "Stay here," he instructed, but I was already moving, driven by the instinct to shield my children against whatever threat lay lurking in the shadows of our troubled past. Jax followed closely, his hand gripping my arm as we navigated the disquieted corridor leading to the source of the sound. Our family had only just begun to confront the chaos of our history, and now it felt like the universe was shoving us headfirst into a new tempest. Whatever was waiting around the corner would demand more than just confrontation. It would rip open long-buried wounds and expose the truth that had eluded us for too long. And in that moment, with everything unraveling anew, I couldn't shake the pulse of fear coursing through me, a premonition that nothing would ever be the same again. The sound reverberated through the house like a thunderclap, sending shards of fear ricocheting through my mind. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, to spare my children the chaos that unfolded in the dark corners of our home. Yet, with each step I took towards the source of the crash, determination melded with dread. "What was it?" Jax whispered, gripping my arm with a force that was both comforting and alarming. I glanced back at him, his youthful features twisted into a mask of anxiety, yet within those warm brown eyes, there was an Ancora reminder of what I had to protect. "Stay close," was all I said, as we made our way into the kitchen. The open door hung ominously, its hinges creaking faintly as if trying to warn us of the turmoil that lay beyond. The sight that greeted us was haunting. Amidst the shattered glass and overturned chairs, my father stood with a look of sheer panic etched across his features. In front of him lay a figure slumped against the wall, a man whose presence felt unsettlingly familiar, his breaths labored but alive. "Kevin," my father murmured, the enigma of emotion cutting through his voice. I felt my heart drop, the name ringing a bell all too clearly. Kevin had frequented dark corners of our pasta's shadowy presence I had long tried to erase. Who the hell is he? My words spilled out sharp and accusing, tinged with the bitterness I had yet to escape. He was my partner, my father said, his voice laden with regret. He got us into it, get me into it. And now he glanced at the man, fear replaced by urgency. He came here to warn me. We're not safe. I felt Lila moving behind me, her small hands finding comfort in the hem of my shirt. I turned, catching a glimpse of her face pale and fragile, like a porcelain doll witnessing a world much darker than she'd ever known. It shattered my heart, and I squeezed her hand tightly, reassuring myself that I wasn't about to let this man destroy us again. "Warn you?" Jax echoed, skeptical tension running between us like a live wire. "Why would he come here?" "Because," my father said through clenched teeth, his intensity growing with every syllable, "they know I'm here. They're coming for me. And if you don't listen to me, they'll come for you too." Shrill panic coursed through me. My thoughts raced as the weight of his words sank in. Our family, once marked by the quiet domesticity of everyday rituals, was now facing a threat that loomed larger than anything we had ever battled before. I thought about Em, about how she would not only inherit my love, but also my fears. Tell us how to fight it, I demanded, the strength of my voice surprising even myself. Tell us what to do. They're not people you can fight, Kevin rasped as he slumped further down the wall, his breath hitching painfully. They'll use everything you love against you. His words clawed their way into my psyche, making the air around us feel suffocating. I had fought tooth and nail to protect this family, to shield them from every potential danger. What good was being a protector when that threat lurked so close, entangled with our past? Don't listen to him, my father interjected, his deep voice breaking through the fog. I don't care what he says. They can't tear us apart if we stand strong together. Together? I scoffed, bitterness curling my lips. Together was a fleeting dream when you abandoned us. Our past may be stitched with promises, but we don't have the luxury of time. Danger is here. It has a name, and it's standing right there. My voice shook, revealing the fractures I tried to piece together. He came here because he cares, Lila whispered suddenly, her eyes wide and entirely lost. He wouldn't want to endanger us. Not now. The gentle conviction in her words sent tendrils of warmth through my tempered heart. For a moment, those words hovered like threads weaving between the chaos, urging us to choose hope over despair. If Lila could still believe in the idea of family, perhaps there was still a chance for us. Look, I started, my voice trembling. We need to help Kevin to his feet and figure out what comes next. But I won't let this family fall apart again. Not because of him, and not because of threats from the past. My father's eyes reflected the tangled rush of emotions swirling within him: guilt, fear, a desperate need for redemption. As I extended a hand to Kevin, who looked as though he too had been birthed from shadows, the gravity of our situation pressed heavily upon us. Together, we hoisted Kevin up, and the moment felt monumental as the four of us stood in an unpredictable alliance forged through desperation and an instinct for survival. But just when I thought the clouds might clear, a powerful knock rattled the door, sharp and insistent. My body went rigid, each heartbeat echoing like a drum in my ears. Open up. We know you're in there. A voice from outside boomed with unyielding authority. My heart plummeted into a pit of despair, apprehension washing over me like icy waves. Go hide, I commanded, urgency spilling from my lips. I couldn't let them take my children. Not again. No, my father countered, face set with resolve. They've come for me, I won't let them harm you. You have to trust that I can protect us. That I in that moment. 1,000 chains felt simultaneously forged and shattered, the balances of trust and love teetering beneath crosshairs of danger. Jax and Lila exchanged wide-eyed glances, their innocence now firmly rooted in the storm ahead. I had wanted nothing more than to shield them from the chaos, yet everything felt poised to fracture anew. It was a truth I had desperately sought to forget, but the pull of our shared vulnerability and despair had magnetized us too tightly. Please, don't let them take you. Emma's voice quaked as she clutched my sleeve, the tears brimming in her eyes, sparking a flicker of fierce determination within me. I squeezed her shoulder, fire igniting deep inside me again. But as I turned back toward my father, he was already stepping toward the door, shadows swirling around the edges of his resolute figure. My pulse hammered, a warning in my veins, a realization dawning as I stared back. In this tale of familial warmth woven with fear, I could almost see the edges of fate draw nearer, threatening to eclipse both love and redemption. And with that fateful knock finally resonating across our doorstep, I could not shake the dread that gripped my heart. Our lives would never be the same again, and everything was about to change. The intensity of the knock echoed through me, an urgent pulse that felt like a countdown to calamity. My father positioned himself beside the door, ready to face whatever lay beyond. I wanted to call out, to pull him back and insist he didn't do this, but the ferocity in his eyes was a silent command that paralyzed me. Trust me, he said, barely more than a whisper, but the weight of those words bore down on my chest like an anvil. I felt lost in that moment, a tangled mass of emotions, a sliver of hope battling the fear of losing him again, and the unbearable fear that this time would be the last. Dad, Jax called, stepping forward, his youthful confidence wavering under the pressure. "You can't open it. Please." But my father merely shook his head, resolute. "They can't take us if we don't let them no." I cried, my voice breaking as I threw myself at him, desperation clawing at my throat. But he was stronger than I expected, his body rigid with purpose as he moved to the door. "Get back," he shouted, his tone more of a command than a plea. In that moment, he became a silhouette of a father I had always sought but never quite understood. And just like that, he sounded like the man who had borne the weight of all our past miseries, stripped bare by our shared history. With a heavy shove, he flung open the door to face the brightness of the outside world, a world I had often felt was more threatening than the darkness inside. A gust of wind barreled into our home, bringing with it the bitter scent of rain-soaked desires and unprocessed grief. Outside stood two figures clad in dark uniforms, their expressions forged in unyielding steel. The taller one, a woman with sharp features and gleaming eyes, took a fleeting glance in my direction, but it was my father who drew her full focus. "William," she said, her voice cool and steady, an unsettling calm lacing each word. "We're here for you. You need to come with us to no," I interjected, panic surging within me. "You can't, we're not asking," she cut me off sharply. "You need to stand down." "Now why?" My father's voice was imbued with defiance, the words trembling on the edge of rage. "What did you do to my family? You bring ruin, not justice." There was a flicker of doubt in the woman's eyes, but she quickly masked it behind her professional facade. "This isn't about your family anymore." "It's too late for that." I felt the ground shift beneath me as a chilling realization settled over my skin. They weren't just here to take my father. They were prepared to extract a cost I could scarcely fathom. "Please," I said, my voice now raw with fear, forcing myself to confront the truth. "They won't leave us alone, will they?" In that moment, Kevin, still caught against the wall, muttered something to himself, words barely audible but laden with weight. "You don't know what you're up against." My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just my father who was in danger anymore. The threat spiraled out like fractals, encompassing all of us, each revelation tightening its grip around my heart. "They're coming for what we've buried," Kevin rasped, his breaths ragged. "Not your father." I felt the blood drain from my face, panic rising like a flood. "What do you mean? What's going on?" But Kevin paused, locking eyes with me. "You're the key. The reason they still pursue him is because of you and your children. You were never meant to live in peace." My heart staggered as fear and confusion crashed together. "What are you talking about? It's not a simple fight for survival," he replied, each word weighted with dread. "It's a reckoning." The woman outside exchanged glances with her partner, and I realized they were growing impatient as seconds stretched into an eternity. My father's stance wavered for the first time since he opened the door, uncertainty creeping into his posture. "William, come back," I begged, pushing past the threshold of fear. But he stood firm. "I won't abandon you," he promised, more to himself than to me. "I will face this. No more running." And as he took a step outside, that single act of courage shot through my heart, igniting a fury within me that had been dormant for too long. "They won't take you." "Not again." The world outside felt like a visceral whirlpool of chaos as our eyes met his resolute embrace, battling against the sorrow and dread that enveloped me. I saw the storm brewing behind him, an ominous shadow filled with memories and regrets, and before I knew what I was doing, I surged forward, grabbing his arm. "Don't," I screamed as I pulled him back, desperate to remind him of everything we had lost. But just as I exerted my strength, the woman stepped forward, her voice cold as steel. "If you refuse to come willingly, we will take you by force." William at my father's gaze flitted, uncertain between protecting his family and facing whatever horrors awaited him. And in that brief moment of hesitation, I saw it an overpowering fear battling with his protective instinct, and I feared the worst. New truths clawed their way into the spaces of my mind, and as Kevin gasped behind me, a realization dawned like the darkest night. If the past didn't truly stay buried, it could rise again, demanding much more than we were ever ready to pay. The tension in the air boiled over as the figures from outside advanced, their intentions clear as nightshade. Just then, Lila stepped forward, a fierce light igniting in her small frame, as she uttered words that would change everything. You mean nothing to this family. Her proclamation rang out, resonating deep within me, stripping the air of cowardice and filling me with renewed strength. And as I turned, standing beside my children, me blood, my fierce hope, I knew we were moments away from making choices that would fracture everything we had known. With the door perched upon destiny and the storm raging beyond, I steadied my resolve to change everything. The past would no longer dictate our futures. And then reality shattered as Kevin collapsed to the ground, his body lifeless, an omen not only of personal reckoning, but of the imminent storm approaching our door. The room thickened with a breathless silence after Kevin's collapse, a heavy weight settling upon us, suffocating in its intensity. I could hardly process the chaos that unfurled around me. Fear morphed into something deeper, an urgent impulse pulsing through my veins. Lilith's brave cry had sparked a fire in me, yet the flickering flames of hope were quickly overshadowed by dread as I knelt by Kevin's side. "Kevin!" I shouted, panic clawing at the back of my throat, my hands trembling as I felt for a pulse. His pale face contrasted sharply with the splotches of faded memories we shared, moments now tainted with fear and uncertainty. The earlier warmth of his presence felt like a cruel ghost of what had been and what I feared we'd lose. Lila and Jax, standing frozen behind me, watched with wide eyes, each heartbeat echoing through the space as they grasped the enormity of our predicament. Their innocent faces, once flush with the everyday joys of childhood, now mirrored the shadows of fear that wrapped us all in their cold embrace. Above us, the unrelenting figures outside tightened their grip on the threshold of our lives. I could almost feel the creeping danger lapping at the edges of my senses. "We have to get him out of here," I urged, my voice trembling, refusing to give way to despair. "Help me." The towering woman stepped forward, brow furrowed, casting an unsettling glance at Kevin's lifeless form. "You should not interfere in matters beyond your comprehension," she warned, her steel-like eyes narrowing. "Your father has begun to make choices that will shape not just his destiny, but yours as well." A flash of defiance ignited within me, a flicker of resolve kindled by my children's presence. "No, you will not take him," I said, my voice rising, steadying against the tumult around us. "Children remind us of the hope we can't afford to lose." "Not now. Mom, what's happening?" Jax's desperate voice pulled at my heartstrings, the innocence of his question a harsh reminder of the shield I had always wanted to provide. I glanced over my shoulder, meeting his apprehensive gaze, fighting to keep my face a mask of resolve. Behind me, Lila whispered softly, "I won't let them hurt you, Mom. I promise." In that moment, her small hand found mine, squeezing it tightly. Her faith brought me a glimmer of strength. Even as the ground beneath us felt unsteadied, I rose. I grasped the levity of uncertainty and fear that enveloped our lives, and willed myself not to buckle beneath it. If Kevin is truly the key to bringing the past crashing down, then we'll find a way to turn that key not by their hand, but our own. I turned my focus back to my father, who stood still and resolute, a glimmer of defiance spotlighting his features. "William," I said, lifting my chin, "we will stand together. You do not have to face this alone." "Not again." The woman scoffed at our rising defiance, her frustration palpable. "This is not a game. You chose to defy reason. You chose to protect a endangered that." A whirlwind of emotions surged through me: regret, betrayal, anger, but most of all, an unwavering determination. We were more than victims to be shuffled around by looming threats. "You have no idea what we can fight against," I said, my voice matching the strength of my resolve. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Lila took a step forward, pointing a tiny finger defiantly toward the dark-clad figures. "You don't belong here. You're wrong." The stunning audacity of her words bounced off the walls like echoes in an empty corridor, a faint glimmer of hope igniting amid the chaos. The woman hesitated for a moment, surprised by the innocent ferocity in Lilith's voice, and then looked to her partner, who seemed equally taken aback that it was a chance, a fleeting crack in their resolve. "Get inside," I commanded my children, my heart racing as time felt like quicksilver. "Now, lock the door." While they scrambled to obey, I faced the intruders, my heart a drum pounding with the weight of my choices. "You may be here for him, but we stand as one." You will answer for what you've taken from us. But before I could ready myself for the confrontation, a sudden commotion broke the fragile tension. A faint cry echoed through the air, delicately slicing through the storm surrounding us. Hope turned to horror as the sound collided with my consciousness in unmistakable wail, a child's wail, piercing through the madness. But not just any chill, the familiar one. Mom. Mom. The voice reached me with a desperate urgency, igniting a panic I thought had subsided. My breath hitched as my heart sank. It was my youngest, Noah. Where is he? The height of my fears drew taut as I spun around, desperately searching for that small figure barreling through the door we had hoped to seal. And then the realization struck like lightning. He was out there, somewhere, right where they could reach him. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet, a relentless tide of dread crashing over me. Noah! I screamed, my voice breaking with raw panic. The storm of uncertainty that had once promised to swallow us felt like a living, hungry entity, poised to consume everything I held dear. The world had shifted, and in that moment, I understood that while we fought back, the battle was far from over. Suddenly, hope and despair coiled around each other, entwined like an inescapable bond. As I stood in the eye of the storm, prepared to face my deepest fears for my children and our unfinished story, I surged toward the open door, desperation overriding caution as my heart thundered in my chest. Each moment stretched unbearably, echoing with the urgency of my son's cries. Noah! I shouted again, my voice hoarse with fear, resonating in the emptiness of the dark hallway outside. Mom! Help me! His voice wavered, an unsteady thread weaving through the tension in the air, pulling me toward the unknown. The towering woman shifted slightly, and I caught a glimpse of her partner's uncertain demeanor. Perhaps, even amidst their sinister intent, the innocence of a child could unsettle their ambition. My eyes darted back to my father. He shifted his weight, his resolve palpable. We were standing together, ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. Leave now. I commanded the intruders, fueled by a ferocity that stemmed from the deepest pits of my love. You're not taking anything else from us. Foolish. The tall woman retorted, inching forward, her eyes narrowing. Children are pawns in this game, and you're about to see just how easily they can be taken. Before I could process her words, a rush of wind swept past me, and Lila, still holding Jax's hand, called out bravely, "We can fight them, Mom. Please let us help." How? I pleaded, my heart heavy with the burden of their safety. The idea of sharing this burden felt like a double-edged knife, one that could potentially cut away at their innocence as easily as it would the ties binding us to a world of darkness. Every moment matters, my father said, his voice low but steady. Do not let fear dictate our path. We can suddenly. Jax darted past my side, his determination igniting a spark of courage in my chest that I didn't know I was waiting for. Noah needs us, he shouted, breaking free of Lilith's grip as he hurled himself toward the door. Jax, no. I couldn't suppress the shriek of horror that erupted from my throat. But the words fell on deaf ears. He was already beyond my reach, a bright comet hastening into the abyss. Time slowed as Jax rushed out into the palpable darkness. The surprise painted on the women's faces sharpened into something darker and more dangerous. The threat was no longer restrained. The battle was within our own walls, a heavy shroud draping over the sanctuary we had fought so hard to protect. In that moment, anguish and fury fused into a singular force as I dashed outside, powerless to let tragedy claim my children. You have no right, I shouted at the gathered figures, my voice crackling with conviction. There, illuminated by the feeble light slipping from the door, I saw Noah, a bright beacon spiraling toward his own downfall. My heart clawed at my ribcage as I collided with my son, my fingers grazing his trembling shoulder. Stay close to me, I exclaimed, pulling him behind me, a protective wall against the encroaching shadows. Behind us, Lila and Jax joined hands, their faces set in fierce determination. Don't let them take us. Lilith's resolve was surprising, igniting a warmth that surged against the stark chill of fear. With my children standing strong beside me, I turned to confront the tall woman, whose ominous energy seemed to ebb and flow like a living tide. You can threaten us, but you will never break us, I said, my tone steadier than I felt in the silence that followed. An unexpected flash glimmered in the woman's eyes, a shadow of understanding yards from the fear I felt. "You think you know the stakes?" she asked, her voice taking on a peculiar softness, almost sorrowful. "You hold tightly to delusions of family." What lay behind her words haunted me, reverberating with echoes of long-buried pain. Just as I was about to demand clarification, a blinding shimmer erupted from the hallway we had come from. It was ethereal, aglow with faint light that danced and flickered like the memories it conjured. Laughter, warmth, dreams of a united family. "Don't let it pull you in," I urged, feeling the grip of certainty waver as that light invaded the edges of our fears. Jax steadied himself beside me, Lila wrapping her arms around Noah's waist as we faced the encroaching luminosity, but it only intensified, a palpable energy swelling around us, singing to my heart with a melody I recognized, but couldn't quite place. Siren's song beckoning us toward choices long forgotten, threads of destiny unspooling. "No," I cried, catching the malice behind our impending choices, which didn't belong to us yet weighed heavy on our shoulders. "You will not dictate our fate." Behind me, the ground rumbled, and a shadow flickered. Kevin, stumbling back into existence, breathless and evidently changed, caught in the midst of intent and disarray. "You need to see," he gasped, pointing at the light growing brighter, dangerously eager. Suddenly, I was exposing my heart to a truth yet unvisited, teetering on the precipice of revelation. As Kevin steadied his gaze upon me, words hung in the air between us, suspended in disbelief. "You must know what's coming, and I can change," but the revelation struck too fast, colliding with my own latent fears before he had a chance to finish. The earth split beneath us, and the only thing I could manage was to scream, drawing everyone tightly into my embrace, against the uncertainty that loomed, straining against the fragility of hope reverberating through us all. All around us, the walls began to tremble. Little did we know, the truths the shadows harbored were surging forward, urging us toward an impossible choice that would change everything we had ever known. And as Kevin's words began to crystallize in the air, echoing with heavy momentum, it dawned on me nothing would ever be the same again. In an instant, the trembling walls collapsed around us, a cacophony of noise reverberating through the air as our world fractured into chaos. My heart thundered in my chest, a relentless drumbeat urging me to act. I clutched my children closer, a desperate anchor against the tidal wave of uncertainty crashing towards us. I couldn't let this darkness consume us, not again. "Mom!" Jack shouted, his voice cutting through the din, pullulating with urgency. I could barely breathe, the weight of impending doom pressing down on me, but I forced myself to look into my children's eyes, those bright, innocent pools filled with unwavering trust. In that moment, a fire reignited within me, churning like a storm, ferocious and vivid. "Dad!" I called out, casting a glance towards my father, who stood transfixed at the threshold of chaos. His face was an unsettling mixture of conviction and confusion, a man honing in between the fragments of who he once was and who he was meant to be. "We need to stand together." Yet, even as I breathed those words, the shrill echoes of the impending storm enveloped us, the haunting voices of our past clawing for space in the present. As the ethereal light enveloped us, a heavy mist swept in around the edges, a curtain shrouded in uncertainty. "Stay strong," Kevin rasped, his voice swirling like smoke, the shadows of his former self flickering with the urgency of his warning. "You have to break the cycle. Find the truth at the center of your fear." I could feel the fraying that held us together. Fear pushed against justice, love against betrayal, and though I wanted to run, to escape into a distraction far from this clamor, I felt my feet firmly rooted in place. There was no escaping what we needed to confront together. Gazing into my children's eyes again, I said, "You are the light. We are the light. We won't let them rob us of that." Determination surged as I stood between threats and hope, every fiber of my being woven into the fabric of their safety. "Your unity is futile." The woman outside laughed, her tone as cold as a winter gust. "You think strength is in proximity? Well, strip everything that binds you, one way or another." With a piercing intensity, I met her gaze, the coldness emboldening my resolve. You seem to underestimate the power of love, the strength of family. We're not afraid of you, despite the chaos you bring. The world shook again, the very foundation beneath us ensnaring us in a dance of chaos as shadows darted around us like specters. But amid the storm, a glimmer of understanding sparked within me. I recalled the broken pieces, the shattered glass of our past. Each slip of confusion and loss had been merely a piece of our journey, puzzle parts destined to reshape the narrative. Before I could speak again, Lila grasped Noah tighter, her face resolute in bravery. We're not just going to stand here. We'll fight. We'll make a new story, one that is ours to own. The air shimmered with promise. My heart swelled with her proclamation, a ray of light cutting through the storm. And just like that, my decision solidified, melded through exposure and vulnerability. This was our momentum, acceptance of the past and the promise of a better future. Together, I shouted, and I felt every ounce of our shared energy coalesce. Jax and Emma beside me, Lila refusing to back down. This was it. We wouldn't let our fears define us again. Suddenly, the shadows thickened, gathering with urgency, as if sensing the resolve in our voices. With each heartbeat, our fights stitched tighter, a thread weaving through our vulnerabilities, an unbreakable bond formed by acceptance and connection. I could feel fear's grip faltering against the strength of our unity. And then, words spilled from my lips with clarity. What if your power crumbles under the weight of love? You can't keep us in darkness forever. A sudden hush fell over the chaos, the tension suspended, as if the universe pondered my claim. I glanced around. Time had slowed, and the storm too fell silent, the edge of light teasing the edges of our lives like a fragile dawn. You think you know the story, but you don't understand the kind of power love can transform. I continued, my voice strong and clear, resonating against the howls of doubt surrounding us. It's not simply a bond, it's our strength. And just as the night cannot exist without the day, we are woven into something greater, not only for ourselves, but for those we love. For a brief heartbeat, even the dark figures hesitated, uncertainty rippling through their demeanor. Perhaps the realization that this family would not cower in fear had disrupted their iron grip on our fates. With that flicker of hope igniting around us, a blinding light swept through the room, burrowing through the darkness and filling our hearts with warmth. At that moment, we surged forward. Together, we took a step, one single, defiant step toward the noisy darkness. As the figures recoiled and the chaos swirled around us, I turned to my children, my heart a symphony of love and resilience. This is your time, and together we are unstoppable. The overwhelming rush of energy burst forth, locked together by bonds too powerful to sever. Surrounding us, the shadows shattered, evaporating into whispers, leaving the echoes of a collective threat crashing against a wall of family conviction. And as dawn began to break through the opening glimmer of our truth, I took one last look at our family, my heart soaring with pride. We stood tall against everything that had ever tried to tear us apart. We had forged our own destiny. Silence wrapped us in its embrace, a welcomed purge after the storm. And in that moment of stillness, I whispered, together, we can face anything. And this is just the beginning. As I turned away from the remnants of fear and chaos, a new light emerged through the clouds, a powerful resonance binding us all in our journey ahead, creating not merely a story of survival, but a promise of love that would echo through eternity. In this family, we would carve our own path, and from even the darkest moments, we would rise and shine more brilliantly than before.